This question, or this chapter is called Linear Relations. It's all about graphing. So put your name on it. We are block C. So today we will work on the notes. And we got 3 lessons, so we're going to be super fast. Yes? After our notes and after Timmy. You gotta learn this stuff. Okay, so now I struggle with this chapter. I teach it differently every single year. I like to have my lessons nice and smooth. So hopefully this one will feel good. It may not be as nice as some other ones, but bear with me, okay? So now I struggle with this one because teachers don't make up what they're supposed to teach. We're told the ideas that you're supposed to teach. And I look at the stuff that they want me to teach in grade 8 for this chapter, and it doesn't really do a good job. I used to teach high school, and when you get into high school, students have very poor graphing skills, and they have a very poor understanding of how these things work. And it's not the student's fault, it's because of how the curriculum is set up. Right? So I modify it every year to hopefully make, when you get into grade 10, a lot easier. Right? So what I do in this class is probably very different than what Miss Chen does and Miss Ritchie's does. Right? So if you're comparing stuff from this class to other class, this chapter for me is probably significantly different because I want to get you ready for grade 10. Right? And I go into different kinds of details. All right. So let's talk about it. Let's go to the first page. All right. So today we're just going to do notes. We won't get to the assignment. I'm not even sure if we'll finish the day 1 notes. It's 3 pages long. Not that it's a lot of notes. It's graphing. Graphs take up space. Right? So it's 3 pages long just because of the amount of space. Or 4 pages long. Right? It's just the graphs take up space. All right. So the first thing is we can have these little points. Yes, Hayden?
After we're done the notes, can I go to the washroom?
Oh, there's already a list, but yes. All right. Okay, so we have these points, and these points have coordinates. And if you watch the Minecraft movie, that means maybe you played Minecraft and hopefully you're good with coordinates, right? Now, coordinates have x values and y values, right? So that means we have these 2 axes. One goes up and down. Let's color that one in purple. And we have one that goes left and right. Let's color that one in green here. One of these is called x. The other one's called y. It's very important that you don't get these things mixed up. All right? Because you have to be able to tell me what is the x value of this point. What is the y value? If you got it mixed up, your question's automatically wrong. Which one's the x? Which one's the y? Students mix this up all the time. Anybody know? Anybody confident? Tanner?
The X is the green one.
The x is the green one. That means the y is this one. Okay. Now, students mix this up every single year. And not just grade 8 students. Students all the way up to grade 11 and 12. This is my little trick to help you remember this. And usually works with most of the students. So, looking at me. So, think of y and x as yes and no. Y, yes, x, no. Which way do we shake our head when we say yes? Yes, we say up and down. So y is up and down. X is no, left and right. Right? So do head nods if you forget. Y, up and down, yes. X, no. All right? So really important. So we have these 2 points here. We have this point A. What's its location? The location needs 2 values. It needs an x value and a y value. What's its x value? So now, it has a little 5 here. That means every single one of these lines is worth 1. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. And that means we're going in the negative direction here. -1, -2, -3, -4. Right? You don't have to put these in. Right? You should just know it. All right? So if we look at A, what is its x value? What is its y value? Peyton?
X value is 4.
X value is 4. So we look down to our x-axis. Oops. 4. All right? So his x value is 4, so we go over here its x value is 4. Now we need its y value. 2. We go this way and we go to the y-axis, the one that goes up and down. We read that value. That is 2. That's it. So when we do our quiz next week on this, one of the questions will be just like this. Hey, here's a point. Tell me what the x value, what is the y value? Let's do this again. We have this b. What's its x value? What's its y value? Sam.
-1.
-1 is what? X or y? -1 is x. You look to the x value. Yes. And what is its y value, Sam?
-2.
Not -2.
-3.
-3. Right? All right. So now, typically, we do not write our coordinates like this. We write them as something called an ordered pair. An ordered pair is the two numbers inside of brackets. Right? So we usually have brackets, a number, comma, number, close brackets. Right? And we put our x and y values, or y and x in there, right? So now, we need to stick our two numbers in there. The order that we put these numbers in is important. You can't mix it up. So the question is, do we do 4, 2, or do we go 2, 4?
4, 2.
4, 2. That is right. So the order is always x, y. Yes?
The only reason why I knew that is because I looked up and said x dash y.
Oh, up here. Okay, it says up here. Good. So now, this is something you do need to memorize. And the way I help students memorize this is just think about the coordinates. They go in alphabetical order. Right? X comes before y. All right? So, alpha order. So x comes before y. Right? Not the other way around. You we marked wrong. So on the next one, we have this point B. Right? We have a -1 and a -3. What way do we put the numbers? 1, 3, or 3, 1? Timmy?
-1, then 3.
-1, then 3. The x value first, the y value second. Right? Okay, so now we're going to put this to work. I gave you points. I asked you to create the coordinates, the ordered pairs. Right? Now we're going to go the other way around. I'm going to give you the pairs, and I ask you to draw where these points are. So on this graph here, draw me where C is. Put a little X or a dot down where C is. Or maybe the letter C. Put the letter C down. Put the letter D down where the letter D is, according to these points. Put the letter E down here. So remember how these go. This is the X value. This is the Y value. This is the X value. This is the Y value. This is the X value. This is the Y value. So a couple of seconds. Graph C, D, and E on this graph. Where are they? Where's C? And I'll do that in a second. I won't ask the class for volunteers. It's too hard, right? I'll graph it and we'll see if you end up with the same answers as me, right? And let's go like this. So good. C is 1 and -2. That's where C is. Right? D is -4 and -2. Right? And E is -3 and +4. All right? So, I'm hoping you're able to do that. So,
I wasn't able to do it.
no? So C is right here. C is 1 and -2. X1, Y -2. That's where C would be, right there. D said it was X value is -4, so you go down from -4 to where -2 is, that's the y value, those two meet there. All right? E said it was x value of -3, so here's the x value. It says y value is +4. Where do these two lines meet? They meet right there. That's where E is. Okay? And we need to get good at it. And it's a skill that students lack. And if you have me in grade 9, when we do our graphing unit, you'll see the exact same thing. This is something that everybody needs to refresher on. At least most of the students. Some of you guys are really good at it. Okay? Not too bad? Okay. So now, we get our points. We can list them as ordered pairs. But ordered pairs are only good for like a couple of points. All right? If you have a lot of points that you want to graph, it's better to put that on a table. So a table is just another way to hold information. So here we have a graph of hours and wages. And we have these points. Here are our coordinates. We have a coordinate here, a 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 4 and a 3 and a 6. And let's go blue, and a 4 and an 8. We have another graph here that we want to do over here. All right? And we have a set of pair of points like this. We have a 1, 0, and a oops. We have a 0 and a 0. We have a 1 and a 3. And we need a 2 and a 6 that we need to graph. Right? So in order for us to graph this, we have these pairs of letters, coordinates. We need to know which one is the x1, and we need to know which one's the y1. All right? So there's only two styles of table. You can have a horizontal table like this. So this is called a horizontal table because horizontal is going left and right. All right? Or you can have a vertical table like this. So all tables are set up with a set x column, a set y column, right? So if you have a horizontal table, right, the top one is always x, and the bottom one is always y. Okay? And if you have a vertical table like this, the left one is always x, the right one is always y. So, once again, you need to know this. You need to memorize it. It's same as the pairs. It's alphabetical order. Right? How do we read? When we're reading, we go top to bottom, x before y. Right? When we're reading, we go left to right, alphabetical order, x before y. Okay? So, when in doubt, alphabetical order. Okay? So, we want to graph this. Right? And when we're graphing this, we should have titles on our axes. So our x-axis is called hours. Right? That's what this is saying. This is called hours. So here we're going to say hours. Okay? And it has a HR for its unit like this. And here we have wage. That's our y-axis. So that's the one that goes up and down. And our unit is $. Okay? Now, it also has, this is optional. I hope most of you guys will do this. All right? It also has this H and this W here. What are those things? So wage is measured in dollars. That makes sense. Hours is measured in hours, HR, so that kind of makes sense. What does the H and the W stand for?
Wait, what?
Here in the table it says H and W, like that. What are those? Yeah, but what do you think those things are? Right? Anybody have a guess? Right? So,
Time and money. Wait, never mind.
no,
No,
sort of. Now, okay, in elementary school, everything was always X's and Y's, right? But we go away from using those letters, right? We use more meaningful letters. Instead of X axis, we're going to say H axis. H stands for hours. And
X doesn't really connect really well with hours, right? H does. So instead of putting the letter X here on our X axis, you know how we say always you say left and right is X? We're not going to put an X there. We're going to put an H there. H for hours, right? And on the Y axis, we're not going to write down Y because that doesn't really make sense. Our letter we're using for wage is W. Now, for purposes of grade 8 and even for my grade 9 class, you don't write down these letters. I'm not going to knock any marks off. But if you walk into your grade 10 class and you're already writing these different things, then your teacher will like it. And you're like, okay, this kid knows what they're doing. All right? So that's something a little bit extra. All right? I'm just going to talk about it. All right, so now let's graph these points. We have our X value of 1 and our Y value 2. So you go 1 here on the X up to 2, and you put a dot. That's the first dot. All right? The next one, it says X value of 2 and a Y value of 4. We start at 2, we go up to 4, and we put a dot. Then it says 3 and 6. We start at 3, we go up to 6, and we put a dot. We have 4 and 8, so start at 4, go up to 8, and we put a dot. Done. We just graphed a table. Not too hard. The hardest part is knowing which one's X, which one's Y, and writing down our little titles. Right? So now, look at the picture we made. What does it look like?
A line.
A line. So this chapter is called linear relations. So all the pictures, all the graphs that we're going to make are going to be lines. Right? Unless I throw you an oddball one. Right? So when you're drawing your graph, if it doesn't look like a line, that means you've made a mistake somewhere in graphing. Okay? Or maybe calculating your point and stuff like that. Right? So this whole chapter is looking at patterns that make lines. And that's very common. Because lots of things in life have linear relations. Right? You're going to start discovering that in your science classes. All right.
Is that it?
No! Oh, come on! Okay, so the next one. We have time and distance on this one that's going up and down. Here, do I write down time next to it? Do I write down the word distance next to it? The one going up and down.
No, distance.
Distance. Up and down is your Y one. And we write down distance. This is our distance, and it's measured in kilometers. Right? That means the other one is our time, and it is measured in hours. It could be minutes, it could be seconds, but our graph says hours. Right? So now, we just graph. We start with the X, and we go to a Y value. First point, 0, 0. So right at the corner is 0, 0. Right? Then we have 1 and 3. 1 up to 3. Then we have 2 up to 6. There we go. That's it. Not too bad. Okay? Easy? All right? Hard part, just memorizing. Alphabetical order, which one goes where. Okay. Now to the next page. We'll be super fast with these. Oh, Peyton is dying. Okay. So, I just gave you a table and asked you to graph it. Now I'm going to go the other way around. I give you the graph, the picture. We need to create the table. All right? So there's two types of tables. We can have a horizontal table and we can have a vertical table. All right? So now, we have a graph of a diameter of a circle versus the radius of a circle. Diameter and radius. Okay, so let's look at this diameter of a circle. At Okay, first, let's write down. Diameter of circle, is that X or Y? This is our Y-axis, right? Maybe I'll write that down. That means this is our X-axis here. So when I go to the very first table here, on the left column, am I going to write down radius or am I going to write down diameter in the left column? What comes first?
Radius.
Radius. X before Y. So radius goes here. Radius of circle. Right? That's the information we have. Right? And it's measured in centimeters. So bracket centimeters. Right? Then over here we go diameter of circle. And that's also measured in centimeters. There we go. Okay? So now if we look at our other table, right? We have a top column and we have a bottom column. What goes on the top? Radius or diameter? What goes on the top here?
Diameter.
Nope.
Radius.
Radius. X before Y. So X comes first, then Y comes second. So radius is up top. Radius is up top of circle, measured in centimeters. That means diameter of circle is down below. Okay? That's it. So now we read off our values, right? So we have our very first point. Let's highlight that in blue. Right here. What's the X value and what's the Y value? Peyton?
The X value is minus -2.
The X value is not -2. If we go down to the X-axis. Timmy?
X value is 1. Y
A-
value. Oh yeah, I got the
The Y value is 2.
X value is 1, Y value is 2. So our, right, Y up and down, X left and right. Don't let the little hash marks on the line make you think it's positive or negative. That's just a tick mark, right? On there. 1 and 2. So that means over here, that'd be 1 on the top, 2 on the bottom like this. Right? Then we have the next one. Let's do this one in purple. Alright? What is the X value here? What's the Y value here? 2 and 4. So when we are reading this, always try to read the X value first, right? Because you're less likely to put it in the wrong spot. So the X value is 2. So that goes here, that goes here. The Y value is 4. That goes here, that goes here. So read it in the order that you're supposed to be writing the numbers down, alphabetical order, right? Try to reduce the error. And then we have this one here. What's the X value and what's the Y value? I heard it over here. What is it? Somebody? No? 3 and 6. So you go 3, then 6. 3, then 6. Okay? All right. Oh, my table's not long enough. We'll just do one more point here. Let's do that.
I
And
extended it.
huh?
I extended it.
That's okay. I think you guys get it the hang of this. The fourth point. The green one. Arya?
4 and 8.
Yeah. 4 for X, Y for 8. 4 and 8. That's it. Right? So not a hard lesson, just things to memorize. All right? So one last page, I think. All right. I don't know if we will graph this today. We'll see. We're going to set it up. All right? We went through fast.
What the?
Right? It's not hard, like I said. It just graphs take up space. So it's thicker than it needs to be. All right. Okay. So, rules for graphing. Right? So this is what I want to see in all your graphs. There's 5 rules. The first rule is that you need to have the proper supplies. So So at the beginning of the school year, I said, hey, at some point in this school year, I'm going to ask you to start bringing a ruler. All right? So we're drawing pictures of straight lines. So we need a straight line through there, not a curvy freehand thing. That's not going to work. So start bringing a ruler to class. I do have blocks of little wood here that we can use as well if you don't have one. But start bringing a ruler to class because we want straight lines. All right? Next rule is we need to have titles. We are drawing pictures, right? We can only make sense of the picture if we know what everything stands for. So we need titles for the X and Y axes, right? And also a title for the whole graph, a main title. Okay? So your science teacher is going to start taking F marks if you don't have titles for your axes and all that stuff in your main title, right? Okay, so you wrote down all your titles down, right? And the next thing after that is you need to have units. So you're going to be graphing points, right? We need to know what units is it. Is your time measured in hours or is it measured in seconds? It makes a difference in trying to units for your axis, right? And the last one, no, second to last one. This one you guys are not going to like. Some of you guys won't like. There's many people in this room are liking to use pens, but a pencil, right? If you make a mistake in pen, it's going to not be erased from your graph, right? And it's going to get in the way of the picture. Start using pencil. It's so easy to misplace a dot. You miscount it and stuff like that. Start bringing a pencil. Make sure you graph in pencil so you can erase it, right? And the last one, which is probably going to be the hardest thing for you guys to do, right, is notice this graph here, right? It's different than the other ones because the other ones, I gave you numbers on your axes. Okay? So you'll be given blank grid and you need to put your own numbers down. Now, in earlier grades, they'll be like, oh, each line is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can do that, but that's not really going to start flying in your higher grades. So the goal is when you make your graph, you want to make it about almost as big as possible. Well, take about at least 3/4 of the space of the graph, right? So that means you might have to skip a few lines before the 1 shows up or the 2 shows up, just to make the graph bigger and more readable, right? Like for example, if we are going to be graphing this, if we graphed this, our time worked is only 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'd only have to use a tiny little corner of this graph, and that's going to be really hard to read as somebody else reading it. So we need to space those things out. So that is called using an appropriate scale. Appropriate scale. And we're trying to use up like more than half, like 3/4 of the space at least. The bigger the better, right? Okay, so that's what you're going to struggle with, because that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, and you haven't done much of that in the past. And I spent a lot of time with my grade 9s doing that as well. All right, so we've got a half an hour left in class. So we are going to set up the scales, and we'll save the graphing of the points till next day. All right, so first off, we have a graph of time worked and pace. So one of those is our X column, which one's, and one of those is the Y column. Which one's X, which one's Y? Timmy?
Time work.
Is X. All right? And that means this is pay. Yes?
Can I please go to the bathroom? I filled out the labels and stuff.
Oh no, wait. You don't know how I'm going to do this. All right? I'm not going to take the whole entire class. Okay. So, this means time work is left and right, and pay is up and down. Now there's lots of different ways we can set up a graph. We can set up a graph that looks like this. So we have the X and Y axes like this, and right in the middle of the page, right? Or we can set up the axes so it's in the corner, like some of the questions that we did today, right? So we want to set it up to make the graph as big as possible. So this one, this style, we use if we have positive and negative numbers. We can see the positive and negative part of the axes. Here, we look at this question here. All of our numbers are positive. So we don't need to use this style of a grid. Or this is going to be a better one, right? Because we only need the positive side of X. We only need the positive side of Y. If we set up our grid in our axes in the corner, we can make it bigger, right? So we are going to set up an axis in the corner, right? And we are going to, should I do that? Right, so that means going across this way, left and right. Grab a ruler. Come up, grab a ruler. All right? All right? All right? I'll pause this.
Carson, grab you one.
That means going this way, using a nice ruler. We are going to have an axis. Oops, that jumped on me. Screen does not work well with rulers. Where did it go? Right? So going this way with a nice straight line. That's where your axis is. Then going up and down, nice straight line this way. All right? So we said that time is on the x-axis. So we're going to write down, leave space for your numbers for your axes. We're going to just write down time goes here. And that's measured in hours. They use H this time. And they say pay goes here. And that's measured in dollars. That goes here. Okay? So before we can graph this, we need to put our numbers down. How big is each space? Right? And we want to make this big as possible. Right? So this is my trick to help figure that out. Right? We need to count how many boxes do we have this way?
35.
35. Thank you for counting it up. In the X, we have 4 numbers that we need to use, right? So if we grab our calculator, you go, and grab my calculator, right? And you go 35 boxes divided by 4. If we wanted to use 100% of this graph, each line would be worth 8.75. That makes a weird graph. So what we're going to do is just make each line a smaller amount. Then we can go like, okay, as long as we make each line worth less than 8, we will be okay. We won't run out of space. So we pick something reasonable, right? So let's go, I don't know, you can do, how about each 4 lines is number 1. So that means each line is going up by a quarter, right? So that's something easy that we can calculate, right? So every 4 lines, we're going to put a tick mark. So we're going to go like this, every 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the number 1, right? Then you go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the number 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5. And I'm going to stop there. Right? Notice you don't need to label every single line. If you start writing down all the decimals, like 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, it gets messy and it becomes harder to actually read. So write down like the main points and you sort of figure out where the other ones are. Yes?
So do you have to put it on a line, or can you just put it in the middle of the dash?
No, you should do right on the line. Right? Right? And that means this is 0 here. Okay. So I'm going the other direction. Right? We have values going all the way up to 44. And if we did everything worth 1, we have like 35 lines, which is a square thing. We don't have enough space, right? So we're forced to use something smaller, right? So, and we want something that's easy for us to do, right? So what should we go up by? You want to go up by 2s? So if you go up by 2s, we'll use up most of the space. That's fine. We can go up by 2. So every second line is worth 2. So that means that every 5 lines is 10. So we don't need to label every single line. So every 5 lines, we have 10. So we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 10. Right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You go 2, 4, 6, 8, 20. Right? Every 5 lines is 10. Another 5 lines. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 30. 2, 4, 6. Running out of space here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 30. Oh, not 30, 40. There. 2, 4, scroll down. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 50. Okay. That's it. I don't need more data than that because our highest number is 44. We don't need anything more than that. Okay? Okay, so now let's save our graphing for next day because there's some trickiness with the graphing and we'll talk about the next day. So come up, bring back your rulers, right? And Timmy can go first, then Peyton.